Hello, I'm Denise.
And I'm Ali.
And we're here today to talk to you on our performance psychology A to Z about something beginning with A, which is anxiety. Jinx. So we have social anxiety and performance anxiety sort of broken down a little bit, because we think that these are things, common threads that we keep seeing over and over again from people who are working in the performance and in the music industries. So social anxiety is a fear of meeting people, speaking with people, being in big spaces with lots of people. And people, I think, sometimes misconstrue things because they think because you're a performer or because you're on stage, you're a musician, whatever it is that you're doing up there, that you will be super confident because you perform in front of people. That doesn't mean that when you're not on stage that you feel particularly confident about being around people.
Sure, social anxiety can be very crippling because for a lot of reasons people will avoid going into that place, time, space where they're going to meet other people. So one of the healing aspects of most therapeutic works is relationship and being in relationship with an other. So if you have a fear of being with another, that can be really difficult and put huge pauses in the therapeutic healing process. And it can be very confusing, like Denise said, about anyone who is used to being in front of an audience, be it a huge or a small audience. That is a part of our persona, it's our performance, it's not all of who we are. And when we step off the stage, we may want to be met in a different way than how we are seen and heard on stage.
I think as well, for lots of producers, for lots of DJs, for lots of people who are spending a lot of time in recording studios completely by themselves with their music, it goes on for a considerable amount of time. Then suddenly you're out and you're on the stage or you're with people, it can feel like a huge jump. For people who are singer-songwriters, you've been singing, recording your innermost thoughts and feelings in one place, and all of a sudden you're presenting it in front of people. It's a huge jump. It's a completely different part of ourselves that maybe we might want to be taking to the performance. So sometimes the social anxiety is part of our own thread, of our own history, of our own teaching, our own learning. Maybe we had anxious parents or people who were looking after us. Maybe we were taught that if we got things wrong, that would be the end of the world, that if we weren't strong, that wasn't, then we were weak. So there's lots of reasons that people might get concerned or a little bit butterflies in your tummy, for example, around things where you are in front of people. You may be judged. And in these situations, we then go to have something that can help us to get through the feelings, the uncomfortable feelings that are coming up.
Or we may be overly controlling of a situation. So we may not go the whole hog and avoid going into a situation, but we may need to micromanage every aspect of it. So we may need to choose the place, we may need to choose the lighting, who's going to be there. There can't be any surprises. The timekeeping is extremely important. All of these aspects, to someone who doesn't see that there's anxiety and fear in that process, it can just look like someone is being a bit overly controlling and a bit bolshy and a bit of a diva. They need it this certain way. So it can come with a real set of judgments from other people. And actually, for anyone who is feeling the symptoms of anxiety, it's literally the only way that they can make something safe enough, make a situation safe enough that they're willing to go into it.
And I think one of the key words is safety. So we're trying our best to make it okay enough that we can manage. So one of the other things we'll do is self-medicate. Now, performance industry and musical industry have quite a reputation, some of them, for self-medication. So, for example, one of the things we may self-medicate with and keep our feelings in check with is food. And then the next thing you know, you're in the papers or people are talking about weight gain and shaming and humiliating or whatever they're going to do around and about that. So people begin to make judgments about the behaviours, about the secondary things that you do in order to keep yourself as safe as you can inside. So what you'll find is that with the things that you self-medicate with, that becomes the problem. That becomes the thing people talk about. But they're completely missing the boat in the fact that actually all of these things are completely secondary to what is actually going on inside that you're trying to self-manage. When we self-manage, we have a great set of defences and self-management tools, and they're there for a reason. And until we've come up with something better, they're the best that we can do, and good for them. So they've kept us alive so far. And so we're not down at all here at Noble House and me and Ali. We are completely up for all your defences that you have until we can come up with something better. It's unfortunate that people choose to have a go for the things that we do in order to try and keep ourselves safe. Yeah.
Sure, and we'll always hear about people needing to go into rehab and various different addictions and all that rock and roll behaviour. It's behaviour, and some people may do the rock and roll behaviour for fun only, okay? We're not saying it has to be this or this.
It's not.
And some people will do it because it's kind of the socially accepted thing in their circle. So it's not exactly peer pressure, but it is very much of the environment.
Mm-hmm. And some people do these things. We haven't, we're going on to AIDS, awareness, addiction, and anxiety all in a winner today. That some people think that they will not be able to be creative if they do not take something or other, and that is a complete myth, which we'll probably cover in a separate feature funding. There's something about really understanding that social anxiety is separate to performance anxiety. Going in front of a lot of people might not be the problem. Going in front of one or two people may feel very difficult. And yeah, we all have our different coping mechanisms, but when we haven't enough in place, we feel crippled by social or performance anxiety. Crippled, we cannot hardly function. And that can feel like an absolute dread of doing anything, and that's a very difficult place to create from, to perform from, to get in behind your music and behind into your emotions, because it numbs everything down in a way to survive. So when it gets to extreme levels, we're talking about survival mechanisms kicking in. Fight, flight, freeze. We're talking about fawn, which is kind of wanting to be needy, be able to touch, and also flop, which is what a little mouse does when it pretends that it's dead when a cat grabs it and then runs away after they just pretend and are paralysed for a little while. When we have the survival mechanisms kick in, this is extremely difficult, especially for performers, because if you freeze, you will forget your words. You only need to do that once, feel the embarrassment, humiliation of that, and you have a sort of post-traumatic effect going on. So each performance can feel more and more difficult than the ones that have happened before, because you're waiting for that to happen again, then you freeze again. All these things are acting out so that we can feel safe in the world.
So these 5 F's are complete core responses to fear or perceived fear of death or danger or something very serious. So if we go back to the start of humankind, there was a response set up in our system that if we were being chased by a lion, we would do one of these to try and save our life from being extinguished by this danger. Unfortunately, as we live in a society where most of us are lucky to not come across too many lions or tigers, but we may have things that are perceived threat to our well-being, to our health, to our ability to survive. It may be that we create something, we build a fear into something greater than it was, but actually when we are frightened of judgment, when we are frightened on a core level of being seen and heard and accepted, then we can build this into a life-threatening fear. And that's why our system can get confused and go into that sort of survival mode, fight, flight, freeze, because our system, our brain, is trying to do what it can to get us out of that dangerous situation. Unfortunately, what tends to happen in that system is our brain stops functioning as well, and we don't have contact with our language aspect of our brain.
That little thinking part as well.
Yeah, the bridge that gets to the thinking part that can make sense of stuff is down, and we can't connect it back up while we're in that place. We show lots of different symptoms, and all of us are different. We may actually not show all our symptoms. We may experience them and be able to keep them quite hidden. But anything that is a behaviour is because of a symptom that's underlying. So we may eat more because we have a running feeling, or we feel empty, or our system is coursing, or we feel faint. And we may feel that if we get some food into our system, that it will calm and press down all of that fizzy energy.
Absolutely. So we go from butterflies in our stomach and feeling a little butterfly to fainting, to paralysis on stage, to these bigger kinds of things. We have physical manifestations. So we may lose our voices. We may get sick. A flu-like thing happens. It's not that it isn't genuinely happening. It's just eventually our bodies take over, and then we can't be in the situations. We're clever that way.
Or we may get into an accident or injure ourselves rather than get sick. It's unconscious or subconscious level
and that's
process.
Really, I think, important to say. It's unconscious or subconscious process. It's not something we're doing on purpose to ourselves. Maybe it is. Self-harm is possible, but a lot of the time we just don't know we're doing it. Back to awareness again. So all of this is just to stir your imagination, stir your mind, and begin to think, what is it that I might be doing that is giving me or is contributing to my anxiety?
So we've talked about noticing the symptoms and the coping mechanisms that we may have around our various different kinds of possible anxiety, be it social level or performance. We've talked about these coping mechanisms, and they quite often may be given the title negative coping mechanisms. And we've already said that we absolutely say keep your defences, keep your coping strategies and mechanisms until you have another choice. The negative coping mechanisms may have started out as the thing that got you through and got you to the stage through your performance without it being too much of an impact. But actually, it may get to a point where that original help, that coping mechanism that got us through, becomes the problem. It stops us from doing our work. It stops us from being able to perform at our best level. So that's why we would call them negative coping mechanisms, and that's why we would now like to offer you some potential more healthy and positive coping mechanisms that you can try. You can put them in place or experiment with them and see if they may suit you and may give you a similar benefit as the other coping mechanisms have done in the past. So when we talk about ways to help calming an anxious system,
then we would go to breathing, because when we are in survival mode, our breathing is interrupted. We hold our breath, we push our exhale, things like that. We have a 10-day breath challenge to go and look at some of the breath techniques that we have come across that help people manage anxiety, panic, and bring awareness to their breath. And that's something that you can do and nobody even knows you're doing a thing. As probably as this next one, which is eye contact. And so when you have eye contact with somebody, it can make your system feel calmer. Now, if you have social anxiety, you may not feel that that is one that's going to be helpful for you. Mm-hmm. Each person has a different set of tools, that's why we have such an extensive toolbox. And if none of them are working for you, then do get back to us. For sure, we'd be happy to give you some more ideas, and we have A to Z to go, so we will come up with lots of different ideas to try over the next 26 weeks time.
So please do subscribe. Please leave a comment below if you do so wish, or do get in touch with us through our website at noblehouse.scot. We would love to hear from you. Please share this with anyone that you think it may be useful for, and let us know how it lands for you.
We hope you'll join us for more of this, and we really look forward to B.
Take very good care.
Cheers.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.